boom. The piercing wail of sirens ripped through the tranquil Blue Ridge Mountains, shattering the morning calm like a stone through glass. I froze mid-sip, my coffee mug steaming in the crisp air. As the sound echoed off the towering pines surrounding my hand-built cabin, my heart thudded not from fear, but from sheer annoyance. This was my valley, my sanctuary, a 500-acre paradise I'd carved out to escape the chaos of city life. Who dared disturb the peace I'd worked so hard to protect? I stepped onto the porch, boots creaking on the weathered oak, and squinted down the winding dirt road. Dust clouds billowed in the distance, kicked up by 2 police cruisers tearing toward my cabin. And there, strutting like she owned the place, was Karen, HOA president, self-appointed queen of the nearby gated community, and my personal headache for the past 6 months. Her smug grin and pointed finger told me she thought she'd won some. Grand victory. Karen, you have no idea who you're messing with. My name's Ethan. Is a 35-year-old former tech entrepreneur who traded boardrooms for backwoods. 10 years ago, I started buying up this valley, parcel by parcel, driven by a promise I'd made to my great-grandfather. He'd been a logger here, his hands calloused from felling trees under these same starry skies. His stories of the valleys. Untouched beauty crystalline streams, deer darting through mist, mountains that seemed to hum with life stayed with me. When I cashed out my startup, I poured every dime into this land, from old family farms to abandoned mining claims, until I owned every acre. My cabin, a rugged masterpiece of cedar and stone, was the heart of it all. Solar panels glinted on the roof, a wood stove warmed the nights, and the view? Oh, a postcard of rolling hills that could make you forget the world existed. But Karen? Didn't care about any of that. From the moment her HOA's cookie-cutter mansions sprouted on the valley's age of 50-acre plot, I leased to them to fund conservation she'd been gunning for me. My cabin, with its wildflower-dotted yard and lack of approved siding, was apparently an eyesore that tanked property values. She'd sent me letters, left voicemails, even showed up once with a clipboard, ranting about bylaws I wasn't subject to. I'd ignored her, thinking she'd tire herself out. Big mistake. Now, as the cruisers skidded to a stop and Karen marched forward, her heels sinking into the gravel, I realized she'd escalated. She'd called the cops. On me. On my land. I set my coffee down, a slow grin spreading across my face. This was about to be the worst day of Karen's life, and one heck of a story for my YouTube channel. The cruisers screeched to a halt, gravel crunching under their tires. 2 officers stepped out, Officer Daniels, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense squint, and a rookie, Officer Carter, who looked like he'd just graduated high school.
Karen
trailed them, her heels wobbling on the uneven ground, her face a mask of righteous fury. That's him, she declared, jabbing a manicured finger at me like I was a wanted fugitive. Ethan's squatting illegally, and that shack violates every HOA regulation. Her voice was shrill, carrying over the chirping birds. I leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed, keeping my cool. "Morning, officers," I said, my tone steady. "Mind telling me what this is about?" Karen didn't wait for them to answer. She launched into a tirade, pacing like a courtroom lawyer. "This cabin is an abomination. It's not zoned for residential use. It's lowering our property values. And he's got no permits. I've warned him for months, letters, emails, even in-person visits, but he ignores me. He's trespassing, and I want him gone." She clutched her clipboard, waving a stack of papers, probably her precious HOA bylaws, like they were a legal warrant. Her eyes gleamed with triumph, certain she'd finally caught me. The rookie Carter scribbled notes, looking overwhelmed. While Daniel studied me, his expression unreadable, I raised an eyebrow, unfazed, squatting on my own land. I asked, letting a hint of amusement slip into my voice. Karen's face twitched, but she doubled down. "Can't just build a cabin wherever you want. This valley has rules, and the HOA enforces them. I checked the county records. There's no permit for this. This eyesore." She gestured at my cabin like it was a pile of junk. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. My cabin was a masterpiece off-grid, solar-powered, built with my own hands. Permits? I had them. Ownership. crystal clear. But Karen's confidence was crumbling, and I was ready to flip the script. "Officers," I said, nodding politely. "I've got all the paperwork inside. Mind if we take a look?" Daniels nodded, while Carter glanced at Karen, who was practically vibrating with smugness. I led them into the cabin, its pine-scented interior glowing in the morning light. From a fireproof safe, I pulled a folder thick with documents, the deed, permits, even a survey map of the valley. I handed the deed to Daniels, who scanned it carefully. Karen hovered at the door, craning her neck. "What's that?" she demanded. I smiled. "Proof I own every acre of this valley, including the land your HOA sits on." Her jaw dropped, and Carter's pen froze mid-note. Daniels let out a low whistle. "This says you own everything?" he asked. I nodded. 10 years Karen's HOA leases their plot from me. Karen's face turned ashen, her clipboard slipping slightly. "That's impossible," she sputtered, but the truth was sinking in. Back on the porch, the morning sun cast long shadows across the valley, highlighting the rolling hills I'd fought to preserve. Officer Daniels held my deed, his eyes scanning the legal jargon with growing surprise. He adjusted his cap, squinting at the fine print, then looked up at me. "Mr. Ethan, this says you own the entire valley? All 500 acres? His voice carried a mix of disbelief and respect, like he'd stumbled into a movie plot. I nodded, leaning casually against a porch post, savoring the moment. Every acre. Took me 10 years to buy it all, farms, forests, even the old mining. Claims it's all mine. Officer Carter, still clutching his notepad, let out a low whistle, his eyes darting across the endless green expanse. "Insane," he muttered. Clearly impressed, Karen, standing a few feet away, clutched her clipboard like a lifeline, her face a mix of shock and denial. "That's impossible," she sputtered, her voice cracking. "You can't just own a whole valley. And even if you do, that shack still violates our HOA bylaws." Her words were desperate now, grasping at straws. Right. I couldn't hold back a laugh, loud and unapologetic, echoing off the pine trees. "Karen," I said, locking eyes with her, "your HOA leases its land from me. That gated community you're so proud of. It's on my property. You don't get to tell me what to do with my cabin." Her jaw dropped, her cheeks flushing a furious red. The clipboard slipped slightly in her hands. I swear I saw her knees wobble. Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow, handing me back the deed with a nod. "Ma'am," he said, turning to Karen, "if Mr. Ethan owns the land, your HOA has no jurisdiction. Here, this cabin's his business." His tone was firm but polite, the kind of voice that shut down arguments. Carter, trying to stay professional, couldn't hide a grin, his eyes flicking between me and Karen like he was watching a tennis match. I decided to twist the knife just a bit. "By the way, Karen," I added, my voice dripping with mock sweetness, "your HOA's lease is up for renewal next month. We should probably have a little chat about terms." The air went still. Karen's eyes widened to saucer size, and Carter coughed to cover a laugh. Even the birds seemed to hush, as if the valley itself was holding its breath. Karen tried to rally, stammering, This isn't over. We'll call our lawyer." But her voice lacked conviction, and she took a step back, her heels sinking into the gravel. Daniel shook his head slightly, his patience thinning. "Ma'am, I'd suggest verifying your facts before wasting more of our time, or anyone else's." His pointed look made it clear this wasn't his first rodeo with overzealous complainants. Carter scribbled something in his notepad, probably just to look busy, but his smirk said he was enjoying the show. I stood tall, the deed in my hand feeling like a scepter. This was my valley, my home, and Karen's power trip had just crashed and burned. I invited the officers to sit on the porch, pouring them coffee from my thermos. The rich aroma mixing with the pine-scented breeze. The valley stretched before us, a tapestry of emerald hills, sparkling streams, and distant peaks glowing in the morning light. Karen stood off to the side, clutching her clipboard, her earlier bravado reduced to a sullen scowl. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the moment. "Want to know why I'm here?" I asked the officers, gesturing to the land. "This valley's more than just dirt. It's my family's legacy." I told him about my great-grandfather, Amos, a logger who worked these mountains in the 1920s. His calloused hands felled trees under these same starry skies. In his stories told to me as a kid on his knee, painted the valley as a living thing, full of secrets and beauty. He'd describe deer grazing in the mist, trout flashing in the creeks, and winds that whispered through the pines like old songs. He made me promise to protect this place, I said, my voice softening. When I made my fortune in tech, I kept that promise. Officer Daniel sipped his coffee, nodding thoughtfully, while Carter leaned forward. Caught up in the story like a kid at a campfire, I explained how I'd spent a decade buying every parcel-load family farms. Abandoned mining claims, even a forgotten orchard where wild apples still grew. Each purchase was a battle against developers who wanted to bulldoze the valley for condos or strip malls. I wasn't just buying land, I said. I was saving a piece of history. The cabin, I told them, was my heart's work built by hand, off-grid, with solar panels and a wood stove. Designed to blend into the valley's rhythm. The HOA's gated community was the one compromise of 50-acre, leased to fund conservation. Efforts like restoring native plants and protecting the streams. But Karen, I said, glancing at her, seems to think her rules apply to me. Karen, still fuming, couldn't stay quiet. You can't just own a whole valley. Snapped, her voice shrilled against the valley's calm, and that cabin's still an eyesore. I shrugged, unfazed. I do own it, Karen, and my cabin's not going anywhere. Daniel set his mug down, his expression firm but kind. Ma'am, based on that deed, Mr. Ethan's got full rights here. Your Ross got no authority over his property. Carter. Scribbling in his notepad added, sounds like he's doing more for this valley than anyone. Karen's face twisted, but she had no comeback. The officer's respect for my story was clear, and it felt like the valley itself was backing me up. I leaned forward, my voice steady. This land's my home, my promise to my great-grandfather. I won't let any one HOA or otherwise dictate what I do here. Daniels nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. Can't argue with that, he said. You've got something special here. Carter grinned, clearly enjoying Karen's defeat. The moment felt like a victory, not just over Karen, but for the valley's legacy. Karen's defeat was a sight to behold. She stood frozen for a moment, her clipboard dangling like a surrendered flag, her face a mix of fury and humiliation. The valley's quiet seemed to mock her, the rustling pines louder than her fading. Bravado? This isn't over, she hissed, her voice trembling as she spun on her wobbly heels. She stormed toward her shiny SUV, nearly tripping in the gravel, her usual composure unraveling with every step. I'll call our lawyer. You'll hear from us. I called after her, unable to resist, looking forward to that lease renewal meeting, Karen. She didn't look back, slamming her car door and peeling out, leaving a cloud of dust that drifted away like her credibility. Officer Daniels shook, his head a faint smile tugging at his lips. Some people, he muttered. Carter, less restrained, let out a chuckle. That was something else, he said, giving me a nod as they headed to their cruisers. With a final wave, they drove off, their sirens silent, leaving me alone with the valley's peace. The days that followed were a whirlwind. By midweek, my phone buzzed with a call from the HOA's lawyer, a nervous-sounding guy named Mr. Thompson. Mr. Ethan, we're so sorry for the misunderstanding, he stammered, clearly aware of the lease situation. Can we discuss terms to avoid complications? I kept it professional, but firm, negotiating a new lease with a clause banning HOA interference with my cabin or land. Thompson agreed without hesitation, probably dreading Karen's reaction. Word of the showdown spread through the gated community like wildfire. A few neighbors, tired of Karen's reign of terror, stopped by my cabin with apologies and homemade pies. You put her in her place. I thanked them, realizing the valley wasn't just mine, it was a shared haven. Free from petty control. Karen, unsurprisingly, went quiet. Rumor had it she stepped down as HOA president, citing personal reasons, though I suspected her ego couldn't handle the public embarrassment. The community elected Mrs. Larson in her place, and she sent me a letter promising to respect my property rights. It felt like a new chapter, not just for me, but for everyone who valued the valley's beauty over arbitrary rules. That evening, I sat on my porch, the sunset painting the hills in shades of gold and crimson. The valley felt alive. Crickets chirping, a hawk soaring overhead, the air cool and clean. I thought of my great-grandfather, imagining him smiling down, proud that I'd kept my promise to protect this land. The cabin, with its warm cedar glow, stood as a testament to that vow. Karen's stunt had backfired, but more than that, it reminded me why I'd fought so hard for this place. It wasn't just about owning land, it was about preserving something bigger, something worth defending.